Good afternoon, this is Weather United here with a tropical update for October the 7th, 2022. As always, my thoughts in this video are mine alone, and making decisions, please consult the National Hurricane Center for the latest information for where you are. Also, if you are new to the YouTube channel and you like the detailed weather content, please consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and sharing this video with your family and friends on social media. Now, taking a look at our detailed mesosector satellite imagery for October the 7th, 2022 on this afternoon, and we can see what Tropical Storm Julia looks like on the satellite imagery this afternoon, and we can see there is a low-level swirl. That's what we definitely take note of on the imagery. That's the low-level cloud pattern that you're actually seeing with a closed circulation, but the thing here is we are noticing still some deep convection that is still concentrated to the southwest of the low-level swirl that is to its northeast, which indicate that the vortex is still misaligned. These two vortexes are not stacking on top of each other, and if we don't get that going, we're not going to get Julia to further intensify or further organize, because you want all the heat or energy to be expelled evenly around the cyclone. And so right now, as it stands, these two centers, as I can tell, are still misaligned, and the system is still producing sporadic deep convection thunderstorms surrounding much of the system. However, it is easily to note that we are starting to see convective banding features to the north of the system, which does indicate that the shear is slowly abating Julia this afternoon. We can still confirm that Julia is a tropical storm this afternoon based on Recon data that flew through the system this morning and found that there is still a pretty good fetch of tropical storm force winds, with winds or flight level winds that is between 40 and 50 knots. Yes, 50 knots is that orange wind barb that you see on your screen. However, the pressure over the center has not dropped very much, only about a millibar from their first pass to their last pass through the center, which means Julia right now at the moment is not further intensifying or organizing, because a drop in pressure means the system is getting better organized, it's strengthening, and the wind energy is able to concentrate a little bit better. But right now it's pretty somewhat loose, with southwesterly and westerly winds on the southern side of the system, with winds here on the northern side coming in out of the easterly direction. But all we know right now is it's a closed circulation, and that's why advisories are being issued on Tropical Storm Julia this afternoon. So the National Hurricane Center still thinks there is going to be hurricane conditions, possibly on Nicaragua and some of the other islands to its east, with hurricane warnings issued there. So hurricane conditions are likely to impact the area right around 8 p.m. on Saturday, and then in Nicaragua by early Sunday morning, where a hurricane watch is issued. And of course, here is the path of where Julia is expected to go in the next 5 days, and then approaching Honduras by 8 p.m. Sunday, and then leaving that area as a depression or a post-tropical depression potentially as early as Monday morning. But again, this cone of uncertainty could still change. This may gain more latitude and hit maybe northernmost of Nicaragua, or go further south and impact more central and southern portions of Nicaragua in the next 2 to 3 days. So a little bit of room of change here is still anticipated, as what the cone of uncertainty really illustrates very much. Winds are at 40 miles an hour, and it is moving to the west at 18 miles an hour. So Julia is moving pretty quickly and pretty briskly in that westerly direction around the deep layer ridge that we will be mentioning here in just a bit. Our key messages for Julia are pretty much straightforward. Julia is expected to strengthen into a hurricane by Saturday evening while it moves over the southwestern Caribbean Sea, and a hurricane warning is now in effect for San Andreas, the Santa Catalina Islands. A hurricane watch is now in effect for much of the Nicaragua coast. Hurricane force winds and a dangerous storm surge are expected in areas where the core of the system crosses the islands and moves ashore. The risk of flash flooding continues today over portions of the Galagera, something like that. I can't speak Spanish, folks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry from my heart. Peninsula. The potential for life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides is expected to spread to portions of Central America this weekend. For more information, go to the nationalhurricanecenter.gov or simply type in hurricanes.gov for more information. Now, taking a look at the latest forecast on Tropical Storm Julia this afternoon on the European model for October the 8th, of course, if you are in the Eastern time zone, because this is going to be in the late evening into the overnight hours, and we can see what the system is going to look like here on our precipitation forecast. So areas in darker green, yellows indicate moderate to heavier rainfall, and areas in red near the core indicate much heavier rainfall that is forecast to develop. And so we can see it's crossing the southwestern Caribbean Sea as early as Saturday into early Sunday, and then arriving on the Nicaragua coast by Sunday morning as a potent tropical storm or low-end hurricane according to the European model in the next 2 days. That's 48 hours out to be exact, and pressure is at 987 millibars, so moderate to heavy rainfall, strong winds. You can bet on a lot of significant, possibly catastrophic impacts on the Nicaragua, Honduras coast of the central Mexico region, depending on where you're at, and then arriving on the other side as a open wave, more of a broader circulation with a lot of the energy being dispersed in 2 different areas. You'll see that here on the next couple of slides. But yeah, there is what is left with Julia in about 5 days with a lot of heavy rain, strong winds, maybe some flood problems, enhanced rainfall, in fact, for the Bay of Campeche in the Gulf of Mexico by as early as the middle of next week. Taking a look at our GFS model, what does this model indicate? Well, again, this is for this afternoon. We can see the pressure is at about 1,000 millibars, not far off. The GFS is initializing this pretty well, actually, which I am really surprised. It has not done a good job lately. So this is going to be important because it does indicate that the pressure could drop down to about 989 millibars over the northeastern Nicaragua coast as a tropical storm or a low-end hurricane, producing very intense rainfall, strong winds, and thunderstorms. And then again, same old deal here. 2 circulations particularly noted on the GFS. One of the circulations of Julia goes to the north, the other one goes to the south. So it's very interesting to see this evolution on the GFS model. One previous run showed that most of the energy was going to be down here. The run before that also indicated the same old deal. Really elliptical, really kind of innocuous looking circulation, really not very well defined on these model runs. But what we do have is maybe a concentration here on the northern lobe, which would be the one that we have to watch closely for further possibilities for the end of next week. But I'm not going to really dive into that right now because we don't even know where this is going to be in 5 days. It could be pretty far to the north or pretty far to the south, just depending on how the GFS or some of the global models handle this. Another way we can figure this out is by looking at the 3-point forecast. And when I mean by 3-point, this is vorticity, this is 200 millibar winds, and this is showing us the topographical map of the atmosphere, these height lines. And so to put into simple words, because I don't want to bore you all with a lot of information in detail, but these are ISO lines, these are geopotential height lines. These wind barbs that you see here are wind directions, and right in here where we have the rainbow colors, I'm just going to simply use that because it looks like a rainbow, is where our vorticity is. So 3 layers put into one essentially on the GFS and the European model, which we'll look at the European model here in just a second. So the primary steering feature is this ridge to the north, as we can see here, well modeled on the GFS. So Julia is going to continue moving off towards a westerly direction, but it does become pretty unclear exactly how this is going to split off with if we get another vort max that goes over here and then approaches, say, the southern portion of the Bay of Campeche, because it's going to matter a lot because this ridge is not forecasted to build further west any more than what the models indicate, and only right now central portion of the Gulf of Mexico is underneath the strongest ridge pattern. Now, The 200 millibar flow map is also right over here, which means we get more of a southerly push to the system, or northerly push, I should say, because we got a trough that will soon drop down into the Midwest. And again, this is just under 5 days out. So by the time we go to 5 days, you can see that energy, this trough over Texas, Oklahoma, and the high plains. We got the ridge over here. And so it's going to be a matter if we get anything that tries to develop here, if it splits or does anything interesting, this could redevelop potentially, something that we don't want to have happen. And if it does, where could it go? All right, so there's a lot of possible outcomes according to the GFS. We can see how fragile this is. Just a few model runs ago, we had it more further east and a little further south, and the ridge was sampled to be on the models a little stronger. Now, when we go and look at the model runs today, we can see the ridge is stronger, but it's also stronger mainly to the east of the system, and we got this trough now that could be getting involved, which could set the edge to this ridge and bring the storm kind of around it in that general favor motion. The European model, pretty much straightforward, pretty similar scenario. We got, again, our vorticity maximum, our spin, how much conservation angular momentum of spin there is in the atmosphere in relation to where this ridge actually is. Because remember, ridges are stronger and it will push the system away from it. And so by day 5, we can see a very big stretched area of vorticity around this deep layer high over Florida, which again will make a huge critical impact on what will Julia do from here. If it will even still be named, we just don't know the answer. But all we know right now is it's going to be impacting Nicaragua and Honduras over the next 2 to 3 days as a pretty strong tropical storm or a low-end hurricane. All right. This is what the track guidance forecast does show over the next 5 days, and we can see pretty much tightly clustered here over Nicaragua. Most, or if not all, of the global hurricane models indicate that this evolution will happen, so there is no immediate danger to Jamaica, no immediate danger to Cuba or the Yucatan Peninsula as of right now. These are likely 2 outlier models. The CLP and the TCLP are likely the outliers. We see that a lot in model forecasts. And so don't really pay attention to these, and instead probably pay attention to this area more and over here, because that's where most of the models indicate that this is going to head. But remember, further out you go, there's a lot of divergence in exactly where the center will be. This is only showing you exactly where the lowest pressure will be, and impacts around that will be felt well away from the system. Tropical Storm Julia is expected to strengthen again in the next 12 to 24 hours as a strong tropical storm. None of the models, or just only a few of them, indicate that this will become a hurricane, which I do agree on, because what we're seeing right now is a very fragile system. The system is less organized than it was this morning, with very deep burstiness to the deep convection. We're beginning to see the banding futures on the satellite like we showed you earlier, right up in here, and it will be very important to take note if this is going to lead to Julia to rapidly organize and maybe fasterly, or become more intense faster. But as it stands right now, I am on the higher end of the guidance, and I do forecast that this could become a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm. I do not explicitly show a hurricane. I am a little lower than the National Hurricane Center, and there's good reason for that because of what we're seeing right now. Now, the high-end potential that this system could still get is to a Category 1 hurricane with winds up to 85 miles an hour, as what the NHC explicitly shows in their forecast. I am not the National Hurricane Center, so I don't make the decision on exactly how strong Julia will get, but please follow your advice from the National Hurricane Center, and I only have my own opinion here alone, and I'm explicitly showing it to you and telling you it. And so if I say 70 miles an hour, it does not mean it's going to become a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm. It does not mean it's going, my forecast is on the low end or the high end. I'm just extrapolating on what most of the models here show as of the 18Z runs. And right now, the majority of them are under hurricane strength, and therefore my intensity forecast is going to kind of be in agreement to that at 70 miles an hour, with rapid weakening thereafter with most of the models by day 3 and day 4. Also, if you feel like you want to be part of the weather community, feel free to join the Weather United Discord server today. There is a link in the description below this video. That's where you get to know me and know my staff and other people. If you found this weather information very helpful, make sure you smash the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future updates. But anyways, I will see you in the next one. Peace!